the cops pull you up for something, they are going to search your vehicle because that license gives them probable cause that you are illegally carrying a firearm.
Okay. It's the top of the hour. I'm going to have to take a break. When we come back, I told you
let's take a break.
What's that?
Yes, let's take a break.
Let's take a break. And I'll be right back after this. I will give you a story that will make you very angry. And it involves the God Emperor, Dr. Fauci. You will not hear this on the media. I discovered this today. Hang around. Please come right back. That's Jack Alexander. I'm BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin, and you're in the Saloon.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website, www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Come listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, for the best in late-night conservatarian wireless talk radio at shrmedia.com. Raised as a free-range child with dirt and freedom, BZ is broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room at shrmedia.com. Now, with 18% more umbrage and 20% more bulbosity than previous shows, and with delicious Liberty additives. Remember, BZ realizes that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for air times. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EBL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And I'm back. It's the second hour. I am BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin. My guest tonight is Jack Alexander of the Jack Alexander Experiment. If you're listening on Spreaker right now, I'm live. Go to Spreaker wherever you are, and if you would, hit share. Pretty please. I would greatly appreciate it. Things are going to change when I come back in a free state. I'm working on super duper great Coolio video, and it should be a great show. By the way, August 16th, which is a Monday, coming up in about 2 weeks, The Right Way with Shannon and Wright is going to return, and I can't wait. One of the best morning shows that I believe that you have ever heard. They have a great and witty repartee. They had to take a break because Shannon Wright was running for mayor of Baltimore as a Republican, so I think you can probably have a pretty good idea as to what occurred there. so we're not calling her mayor of Baltimore. Anyway, they are back and they will return. I told you before the break that I'm going to have a story that you're not going to want to hear, but you need to hear it so that you understand who you're dealing with when you're talking about an individual like God Emperor Fauci. This just came out from thefederalist.com watchdog report. Fauci spent nearly $500,000 in taxpayer money on abusive experiments on dogs. The National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, directed by Dr. Anthony Fauci, spent $424,000 in taxpayer funds on experiments to infest beagles with parasite-carrying flies, even though the procedure had already been extensively tested on other animals. White Coat Waste Project, the government watchdog group that obtained the documents, found that about half of Fauci's $6 billion budget was used for animal experimentation, including the abusive dog experiment. This is your God, Emperor Fauci. The funds were directed to the University of Georgia Research Foundation to conduct the experiment. According to documents that we just obtained using the Freedom of Information Act, a FOIA request, Fauci spent $424,000 to commission a study in which healthy beagles are given an experimental drug and then intentionally infested with flies that carry a disease calling parasites that affect humans, White Coast Waste Project wrote. The documents further revealed that the experiments were not necessary because scientists had already performed similar studies on various other animals. This is a quote. Experimenters admit this investigational drug has been extensively tested and confirmed in different animal models such as mice, Mongolian gerbils, and rhesus macaques, the group found. Records obtained by the FOIA request show that the dogs vocalized pain during the experiments. This is a cut from that document. A second round of blanked was administered December 17th, blanked, were without incident with one important exception. The 4 animals of the blue group all vocalized in pain upon administration of blank. This did not happen during the first blank in November, nor did this happen with any other group. Upon physical exam on December 23rd, all animals were bright, alert, and responsive. The Daily Caller reported that the NIAID task force showed, this is a quote, 28 beagles were to be allowed to develop infections for 3 months before being euthanized for blood collection. The dog experiments are set to be completed by January of 2022. However, the task order states that the beagles are to be euthanized 196 days after the start of the study. According to emails obtained by WCW, the study began on November 12, 2020, meaning the beagles would have been scheduled to be euthanized in June of 2021. Justin Goodman, vice president of White Coast Waste Project, said in a statement that Fauci needs to be held accountable for the taxpayer-funded abusive animal experimentation. It's not just Wuhan, Goodman said. Fauci's budget has ballooned to over $6 billion in taxpayer funding annually, at least half of which is being wasted on more questionable animal experimentation, like these deadly and unnecessary beagle tests and other maximum pain experiments. Fauci needs to be held accountable for this staggering waste and abuse overseas and right here at home. Now, why did he mention overseas? I'll get to that in just a moment. The group started a petition to increase government transparency for use of taxpayer funds for animal experimentation. NIAID did not immediately respond to the Federalists' request for a comment. Let me remind you of this, folks. It was the God Emperor Dr. Fauci who also, when he realized gain-of-function research was going to be disallowed and declared illegal in the United States, Dr. Fauci decided to cut an agreement with the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China. You know, our good communist friends, in order to continue gain-of-function research by funding the Wuhan Institute by way of intermediaries and cutouts by the NIH. So let me remind you of this also, if I could, please. Gain-of-function research of viruses means a gain of function in terms of killing you. So make no mistake, they're talking about biowarfare. I mentioned this about a month or two ago. Gordon Chang, who is an expert on China, has been writing and alerting everybody as much as he possibly can that the DNA, your DNA, China is hoovering it up at prodigious rates, and it's up to no good. What they're doing, when you want to know about your background and you send your DNA into company X or Y or Z, you may not know that one of the first things that occurs to your DNA is it gets sold and copied and sent to somebody else. And it likely already ended up in China. Now, BZ, why is it, sir, that China would possibly be hoovering up as many people's DNA as possible? Let's go back to the Chinese virologist that spoke a number of times on Tucker Carlson tonight on his show and said that, in her opinion, Wuhan 19 was released on purpose by China. China will do anything and everything, confirmed by Gordon Chang, to make sure that they come in first in everything from now on and that they beat America on every level. What they're not saying specifically, and I can tell you, I believe this to be true, is this is part of a long plan to make sure that come biological warfare, China can do exactly as it did before, I believe in mid-2019, and allowed Wuhan 19 to escape. Or they're just absolutely incredibly fucking incompetent. But that's a story for another time. But you cannot convince me or disabuse me of the fact that they are keeping everyone's DNA to craft a virus that, when pushed in lieu of, I don't know, a couple of nukes in the right place, they can unleash a virus upon the planet. And now you know you can bioengineer shit when you have damn near every ethnicity on said planet. And so would it be impossible, folks, to craft a virus to be released when necessary or wanted by Xi Jinping or whoever happens to be in charge in China at the time? A virus that can magically, mystically leave all the various and sundry people of China alone and attack the races of most anyone else around the planet because you've already given them your DNA. You think that can't happen? You think China wouldn't consider that? You think that they wouldn't create a virus which would attack everyone else, leave their infrastructure? How beautiful would this be? Leave their infrastructure, your infrastructure, complete, not take down your grid, not take down your beautiful parks, your water, your reservoirs, your dams, your cities, your military vehicles, your equipment, your planes, your ships. But it would just kill everyone in your country. Dead. What a great disease that would be. China would be exempt because it was designed to make sure that it didn't affect the Chinese in China. But it would affect everyone else. They could target any number of ethnicities or every ethnicity if they wanted. Russia, the United States, all of Europe, the UK, whatever would be beneficial or whatever would yield them power. And how beautiful is that? Kill everybody and leave their infrastructure. You don't think that couldn't happen? You don't think that couldn't happen? You better rethink again. Jack Alexander, am I a tin...
Actually, can I just add to that?
I was just going to say, am I a tinfoil wearing nut?
Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of medical precedent history on this.
Okay.
During the Korean War, there were anti-malarial drugs that the MASH units could not give to African American soldiers because there was something in the black makeup that reacted adversely with those malarial drugs. It was purely on a race thing, and it also happened in those with Mediterranean. There was something in the genetic makeup that those malarial drugs reacted badly against. MASH even highlighted. That's where I first found out about it. It was based around a story about Klinger acting adversely after getting an injection. And after that, I went back and had a look. And while I forget the name of the actual drug, there are medications out there that are or contraindicated for certain racial profiles. So it's not like this sort of thing is a new thing. It's been known about for quite a while.
And China can do damn near anything they want. Oh, wait, you mean China that's funded by dog killer Anthony Fauci, who was pissed because the United States decided, well, maybe that gain-of-function shit isn't really ethical. So he took his cards and his toys and his cash and he gave it to China to work on and then paid them to continue the research that he wanted to see continued. What other use of gain of function research except for biological warfare? Can you think of one? I can't, Jack.
I can't. In fact, as far as I can see it, gain-of-function research is just, rebranding something, to make it sound legal. It used to be a case where being a mercenary in the United States and Australia was illegal. Because it's illegal for a citizen of one country to be a paid soldier, a soldier for hire in another country. Now we call them private military contractors. And that's all perfectly legal. Being a mercenary is still illegal, but being a private military contractor is not. And we see this with so much in politics. Oh, this is illegal. Well, let's just find another more friendlier name that we can give it, so people don't know that we're doing something illegal.
Well, it's wordsmithing it. It. I'll get back to coronavirus stuff, but I told everybody in the promos that I would get to this tonight. So I do want to get to this because this is so outrageously, stupidly objectionable. So I hope you're sitting down, folks, because
Tales from the racist, sexist industrial complex, courtesy of BZ, here on the Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show.
I told you that you would hear this. I promised you. And this is Missouri Democrat Congress critter Cori Bush, massive racist, on CBS talking about, well, her favorite subject, her.
You faced some criticism in recent weeks over your push to defund the police. The campaign records show that you spent roughly $70,000 on private security, and some critics say that move is hypocritical. What's your response to those critics?
Listen to this.
They would rather I die? You would rather me die? Is that what you want to see? You want to see me die? You know, because that could be the alternative. So either I spent $70,000 on private security over the last few months, and I'm here standing now and able to speak, able to help save 11 million people from being evicted, or I could possibly have...
Oh, evicted. Oh, we'll get to that.
...a death attempt on my life. And we're also talking about the same exact people who say horrible things about me, who lie to build up their base. And then because they lie about me, I receive death threats.
Oh, I don't have to lie about you. You're a racist. It's simple as that. You get death threats? Well, do what you'd tell me. Prove it.
Now, they don't address the fact that I receive death threats after they go on air and say horrible things about me. But then they want to say, oh, but she needs private security. I have private security because my body is worth being on this planet right now.
Her body is worth being on this planet right now, and yours isn't. This is what she's telling you. She's telling you she's a massive fucking hypocrite. She is proud of it. I speak leftist, so I'll translate. You're going to hear the rest of this, too. It's another obscenity by a racist. But I speak leftist, so I'll translate. And what she's saying is, I'm better than you. I'm more important than you. I don't have to live by your petty little rules with your petty little lives, so fuck y'all.
I have private security because the white supremacist, racist narrative that they drive into this country, the fact that they don't care that this black woman that has put her life on the line, they can't match my energy, first of all. This black woman who puts her life...
Trump could outwork you every damn day.
On the line, they don't care that I could be taken out of here. They actually probably are okay with that. But this is the thing. I won't let them get that off. You can't get that off. I'm going to make sure I have security because I know I have had attempts on my life. And I have
Prove it.
Much work to do. There are too many people that need help right now for me to allow that. So if I end up spending $200,000, if I spend $10 more on it, you know what? I get to be here to do the work. So suck it up, and defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police and put that money into social safety nets because we're trying to save lives.
Again, fuck you. I'm better than you. I'm a black female. I'm louder than you. I'm part of the squad. Defund the police. And I'm worth $200,000, $70,000, whatever I decide to use your taxpayer dollars for. 'Cause I'm just damn better than you. Folks, can you think of any other alternative interpretation for that? 'Cause I can't. Jack?
I mean, I'm sitting here laughing. She's had a couple of death threats. In my broadcasting career, I have racked up 35 fatwas at least against me. And I'm more inclined to take those more seriously than the hollow BS that... And I don't believe for a second that she's gotten a credible death threat. You know, I don't believe that for 1 second.
She may have gotten a death threat from some Antifa jerk wearing a Hello Kitty hat. Maybe.
Well, There's always that possibility. But, I mean, I wouldn't take any of most of the threats they give credibly anyway.
No.
I mean, once you stand up and you start fighting back, they all run away anyway. They are, they love to walk up behind someone and king hit them with a lead pipe. That's how Antifa fights. That's why I always love, I almost piss my pants every time, we get these Antifa leaders, we're coming for you, middle America. And I'm thinking, you can't even get out of the city. The impatience in a lot of these groups. Do you not realize that the majority of the flyover states are full of military veterans who actually know how to use those weapons? And the other half that live there are probably hunters who are prepared to sit, soaking in artificial deer piss to get that perfect shot for that trophy buck, and they will sit there for 12 hours to get the perfect shot, silently waiting. Do you really think that the likes of Antifa could actually be a credible threat outside of the big city against that? This is what I said. If there's ever a second civil war in the United States, all the militias have to do is isolate these big leftist cities and put a ring of militia around the outside of them, and you could starve these people out in a month, because they will automatically, they will instantly start. And we've seen this in all of these, autonomous zones, like the Chaz Chop.
Chop, Chaz.
As soon as they set up this area, they started, eating each other. They started turning on each other, and it turned into a royal shit show. So, every time I hear these people, I just have to laugh. And I think, now, if the civilians are willing to soak themselves in artificial deer piss and sit in that for 12 hours to shoot a deer, how long do you think they're going to sit there and wait for you dumb fucks to stick your head up and, pull out that Gucci Glock, hold it sideways, and act like the dumb nigger thug stereotype they all think they are? It ain't going to happen. One of these guys is going to wind up with their brains splattered all over the rest of the guys. They're going to go, oh, fuck. There was some footage coming out that during the riots last year, a whole bunch of people turned up at just on the side of the road in front of some of these places, and one of the residents had a paintball gun, but they'd gone out and spent the extra money to get the pepper balls. They're a mixture of really hot chili and CS tear gas. These guys were hunters, right under the eyes of all of this angry black mob. They leopard crawled up to a point where they could start popping these things at the protesters unseen, and it was like, oh, what was that? And they said, now, do we start using live ammunition, or are you fuckers going to leave? They could not get out of there fast enough, and they left half of their people behind, because unlike real soldiers, they never leave a man behind.
Oddly enough, it wouldn't shock anybody that in the free state that I'm considering, that I've purchased a house in already, Antifa made an appearance in one of the medium areas around there and were met with lots and lots and lots of people carrying long guns, and they went away. Imagine that. Now, I'm going to have to take a break in about 1 minute. Final break of the night. When I come back, we heard about what's happening in terms of Wuhan 19 down in Australia, as wonderfully illustrated with great reality by Jack Alexander of the Jack Alexander Experiment. Something new that you haven't heard about, just as you haven't heard about the truth regarding Fauci and what he's actually doing at NIAID. Here's some truth, coming after the break that you have definitely not heard about with regard to Wuhan 19 and where? Canada? Canada? Are you kidding? No, I'm not kidding. Hey, during the break, folks, by the way.
Folks, this is BZ's final hour. Step up. Last call for alcohol.
So, come back right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Hi, this is Eric Thompson. Please check out my new Week in Review show, For Liberty's Sake, Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Check out forlibertysake.com.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And it's the final 28 minutes of the show. My guest tonight has been Jack Alexander of the Jack Alexander Experiment radio show. Jack is in Australia right now, in the southern hemisphere. He's in the state of Victoria, and because it's during the day, he's not in the state of unconsciousness. He's wide awake, and it's tomorrow, as far as he's concerned, and as far as I'm concerned. That's why I say it's tomorrow's news today with Jack Alexander. Now, I teased before the break that I was going to have some interesting news about Alberta, and it happens to do with Wuhan 19. And I don't just have one source, because I can hear it now. When I announced this on social media, a lot of people said, prove it, man. Okay, I have a couple of sources for this story. One of them is, COVID is dead. Alberta court strikes down public health policy for lack of scientific evidence. Now, you should know this. Alberta is in Canada, and it's one of the, if not the most productive state in Canada. That's where all the logs come from. That's where the oil comes from. That's where the fracking comes from. It's also one of the most cogent states. It's one of the most smartest states. And I believe it shows it here. Breaking out of Alberta today, mandatory masking is coming to an end. Kids will not be masking when they return to school. Mandatory quarantines are going to be ending. Contact tracing, testing for mild symptoms, it's all done. They will now be recognizing COVID as a mild flu and treating it as such. So essentially what occurred is freedom has won in Alberta, providing that fighting does work, which is why you're not hearing about this. This is from also redvoicemedia.com and also from a guy named Stu Peters. So, essentially, Peter King represented himself in court after he was fined $1,200 for protesting against the COVID hoax. He slew the beast and he emerged victorious. He issued a subpoena to the provincial health minister for proof that the so-called COVID-19 virus exists, and they were forced to admit that they had no evidence whatsoever. The virus has never been isolated, and thus the government had no legal grounds to impose any of the punishing restrictions they have inflicted on society. Since the shocking confession came to light, the province, and I'm sorry, they're called provinces, not states. I should know my Canada. Oh, Canada, my Canada. Alberta has since rescinded all COVID restrictions and now officially treats COVID-19 as nothing more than a mild flu. It would appear those people won, but wait, there's more. This is from calgary.ctvnnews.canada. Oh, BZ, you're going on all that right-wing crap that no one listens to. This is a Canadian site. No quarantine for COVID-19 after August 16th. Alberta set to end restrictions. Alberta, that province of which I was telling you. From Calgary. Alberta is lifting much of its remaining COVID-19 restrictions in the coming weeks, even as case counts climb and the virus continues to infect unvaccinated Albertans, so they say. Now, Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, notice how they craft this story. It's as if they're sorry you got freedom. What the hell is wrong with you? So every story has a slant. And I'm here to illustrate that to you. In our first COVID-19 update since June 29th, announced Wednesday that starting August 16th, people who test positive for COVID-19 will not be mandated to quarantine anymore, as they were mandated prior, but the province they're going to recommend it. Additionally, Albertans with COVID-19 symptoms will not be asked to get tested, but to stay at home until they feel better. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, my God. Stay at home, away from work, until you feel better. No. We can't have that. 2 weeks later, COVID-19 tests will only be available to people who need to go to the hospital or see a physician. That was all just part of a shift in the province's public health response as it moves to lift a number of measures related to quarantine, isolation, and masks. Starting Thursday, close contacts of COVID-19 cases will no longer be mandated to quarantine, but isolation will still be required for positive cases and people with symptoms. Well, like really you should have been doing with all your coworkers when they had the flu or they had a cold. Remember all those assholes coming into work and infecting you? All the people that had kids at home and were sharing the flu and various colds from their kids to you, and then the adults took it to work. And you said something similar to, why don't you just stay the hell at home so that you don't infect everybody else at work? And you know how many times the flu and the cold, various colds have gone through your places of employment. So what I've said is true. This is a Canadian site saying masks won't be mandatory in public transit, ride shares and taxis starting on August 16th, the province announced. Some masking may still be required in hospitals or continuing care facilities. Duh. So at a time when the exact opposite is occurring for Jack Alexander, down under, Alberta is seeing a shift. Oh, and here's Chip Roy talking about Congress playing footsie as all of these infected illegal aliens invade the border.
We have a crisis at our border, and we're playing footsie with mask mandates in the people's house. I mean, it's absolutely absurd what this body is doing, the people's house. It's an embarrassment. It's a mockery. And the American people are fed up. They want to go back to life. They want to go back to business. They want to go back to school without their children being forced to wear masks. to be put in the corner, to have mental health issues. And we're running around here, and the speaker comes down here at 10 o'clock in the morning saying we got to wear masks in the people's house while we've got thousands of people pouring across our border, and Democrats don't do a darn thing about it, heavily infected with COVID. We have the New York Times, today. What a mess. CDC about to reverse on indoor masking for the vaccinated, quote unquote. This is some serious nanny state stuff that will only breed resentment. No kidding. Consider resentment being magnified right here on the floor of the House of Representatives. We are absolutely sick and tired of it, and so are the American people. This sham of an institution is doing nothing for the American people, nothing for the betterment of the people that send their representatives here. I just met this morning with an organization that tries to take care of people from human trafficking. Met with an elected official from Mexico, while cartels are raping and pillaging and killing. And we have people infected with COVID coming across our southern border into Texas, and you all put masks up front here on the people's house? We got to go around and see, okay, we can't come to the floor. I can't execute my constitutional duty unless I wear a mask. Well, which is it? Vaccines or masks? Do the vaccines work or they don't work? Do the masks work so they don't work? I'd like to know which it is. I'd like Dr. Fauci to come down and answer a single question about natural immunity.
Hold that thought. I've got Dr. Fauci to talk to you in just a moment.
If you've been infected with a virus, do you have immunity? Or are they just going to go around poking people saying you must take a vaccine? Oh, but sorry, the vaccine doesn't work. You must wear a mask. This institution is a sham, and we should adjourn and shut this place down.
Speaking of that, here's God Emperor Fauci himself in his own words in 30 seconds.
When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course. But when you think masks, you should think of healthcare providers needing them and people who are ill. When you're in the middle of...
Schmutz, Jack Alexander, that's the technical term. And you wonder, there should be no wonder whatsoever why people are not just confused, but now they're pissed at the misdirection that's been given with all this crap every day. Just today from Bloomberg.com comes an article that says, well, first you were told, get a booster. The WHO and the CDC said, get a booster. Now, an article from Bloomberg, a big booster push now would be wrong and dangerous. Okay, how about if I just don't get a fucking vaccination in the first damn place? All the people that want to get vaccinations, God bless you. You probably already have one. But for the people that don't, like me, and I'm in that seventh decade, horribly overweight, morbidly obese, every health problem known to man, I'm still here, and I'm not going to get one. I don't have to. Number one, you can't hold me hostage, for one. Alberta freed itself. Australia's not freeing itself. I want you to hear this. How much time do I got? Okay, I got enough. This was wonderful. I got about 15 minutes to the end of the show. And this was so wonderful, I want you to hear it. This is a parent in Virginia who sat at one time, is my understanding, on the board to whom he addresses, knows how the game is played, and if this guy isn't a wordsmith, oh my God, I don't know who is. This is glorious.
Simon Campbell, 1571 Brookfield Road, Lower Makefield Township. I'm a Pensbury School District resident, Pensbury School District taxpayer. I'm also a former member of the Governing Board of Directors, 2009 to 2013. It's nice to see the old faces. I'm here to speak today. I believe, Gary, you said it was item KKK in the agenda book. Well, isn't that just a perfect summation of what it is I'm here to talk about? KKK, your proposed new school board policy, seeking once again to limit the constitutionally protected speech of American citizens. Now, when I sat on this school board, I believe some of you old-timers might remember this. A union guy spoke at public...
By the way, he's talking about censorship, which occurs when you're talking about Wuhan 19 or taking your kid to school or not having to wear a mask or things that are of concern to leftists.
Public comment for 5 minutes and ripped me a new one. He called me the bastard child of Margaret Thatcher. And I sat there and I said to myself, okay, fair enough. Welcome to America. He considers me a bastard because I'm in the government. His logic is sound. Now, what happened was the superintendent and the school solicitor at the time freaked out and they didn't put the tape online the next day. And I called them up and I said, get the tape online now before we get sued for censorship. I yelled at the solicitor and I asked him what law school he went to, because it was clearly constitutionally protected rhetorical hyperbole. I can cite the case if you'd like. And I said to Paul Long, the superintendent at the time, don't ever cut the tape again, Paul. And by the way, bastard child of Margaret Thatcher, I took it as a compliment. Now, you snowflakes apparently have a bigger problem with public comment. It seems to me that you think you can supersede the United States Constitution. Well, I've got news for you, School Board President Benito Mussolini. Your power does not supersede that of the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment rights of the citizens of this great nation. Let's be very, very clear who has the power.
Mr.
It is
Campbell,
not government policy. Do not warn me or do not interrupt my time.
That if you make personal insults like that again, or if you personally direct your comments, you will be asked to step away from the podium.
I'm going to quote to you, solicitor.
Make your comments,
I'm
but
quoting,
do not
just
do
a minute, do
name
not
calling
talk
like
over
you
me.
just did.
This is my comment, not your comment. I'm quoting to you now from the United States Supreme Court 1964 case, New York Times versus Sullivan. This is constitutional case law in this country, and I'm quoting you from the U.S. Supreme Court. The judges wrote that this nation is founded on the, quote, profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues shall be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and that it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials.
Stop. And that includes me, folks, and that includes Jack as well. If you don't like it, move.
That's constitutional case law in this nation. I don't have to be nice to you. Nobody behind me has to be nice to you. If you don't like living in the United States of America, then you can all move to Russia, Cuba, or China. This is the First Amendment. And I will caution you, solicitor. There is a video camera to my left. If you edit this tape, then you're going to have a big legal problem on your hands, because my right to critique your fascism, which is what this is constitutionally protected. There are emails, public record emails, in which the Director of Equity is lobbying and advocating for public comment to be censored in this school district. And you know what? Lobbying for it, advocating for it. We've got the school board president saying she'll do better at hitting the mute button in blatant violation of the Constitution. For her lobbying and her advocacy of unconstitutional censorship, I want you, the school board, to terminate the employment of Dr. Charissa Gibson with immediate effect.
And that guy was on fire. And rightly so. Folks, all of you should be on fire. Listening to me, listening to Jack. Jack is a perfect illustration of tyranny in an entire country. Hell no, a continent. Australia. Over 927 deaths Australia is about to lock down for the 6th time, locking down everyone in a continent. Oh, because it worked so well before, we need to do it again. And everyone knows that that's the definition of insanity. Jack Alexander, any thoughts?
He was on fire.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah. Look, maybe this is why liberals hate legal immigrants. I mean, that guy was British, and he seemed to understand the Constitution a damn sight more than most on the school board. And I would put it to you that I probably know more about the Constitution than most Americans, because I have bothered to go out and teach myself about it. I mean, the United States is I call it my adoptive home. I might not yet be a citizen, and I ideally crave the day when I will become a U.S. citizen. It's not going to be anytime soon because of the BS that's going on, but I do crave that day. And I think that is why the Democrats don't want legal immigrants, because legal immigrants love this country. It's not about the hand; it's about the hand up, not the hand out, which is what all the illegals are coming for. And every time we keep pushing this. About when are the legal immigrants going to get a fair shake at this? That's just too awkward a question. Well, why is it awkward? Why is it a difficult question? Why not just shut the damn border? I mean, was the report I saw? 7,000 cases have been recorded at, I think it's the McAllen.
Yes, McAllen, Texas.
In McAllen, Texas. 7,000 cases a week of COVID-infected illegals coming across the border. If this is such a deadly disease, why is the border still open?
That's why I've said for some time, these people aren't serious. It's so obvious for anyone that has half a damn brain that this is fake. This is fake. This is theater. This is kabuki theater. This is theater of the absurd. This is ridiculous. These are children. They are part of the woke child mob. They aren't adults. They need to be sitting at the kids' table. And that includes a passel of Republicans as well. Let me ask you this, Jack. I still got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. I got 8 minutes before the top of the hour break. Would you mind holding over a little bit? Because I still got a bunch of stuff I'd like to talk about, if that's okay with you.
Hey, I'd love to.
Okay. All right. Let's make this a little bit over a 2-hour show. I got absolutely no problem with it because it's my damn network and my damn show, and there's no one on after me anyway. Because I've got so much stuff to play. Here's the CDC. Now, this occurred recently. CDC announced a new eviction ban, despite the Supreme Court threat. Oh, you had Biden saying that, I'm pretty sure that we get slammed by the Supreme Court, but we're going to do it anyway. The moratorium will apply to counties experiencing substantial and high levels of community transmission levels of COVID-19 and will last until October 3rd. Here's something interesting. I have a dear friend who's a leftist, and he has a house that he recently bought, and he has 2 roommates who pay rent to him. So they're tenants, and he's the landlord. Really nice house. I said, hey, Mr. D, did you know, by the way, that Biden is picking up and continuing the eviction ban? And he said, eviction ban? What does that mean? I don't get it. I said, well, let's see. If one or both of your tenants decide that they're fiscally strapped and they start to not pay rent, well, there's nothing you can do about it. because eviction ban means that you can't even start the process going for eviction. That's what an eviction ban means. And he said, you're kidding. Well, he just bought this house. That can't be right. If his tenants, and his tenants are good tenants, by the way, I've met them, but if they decided one day, we're not paying any more rent, because now we are fully cognizant of the fact that if we don't, you can't kick us out. Oh, and by the way, you have to maintain everything properly. Our roof can't leak in our room. The toilet has to flush. The water has to go. The electricity has to be on. There isn't a damn thing you can do about it. And by the way, we know that you have to pay your mortgage because the bank ain't giving you any time to not pay your mortgage. It's not like the bank said, oh, that silly, stupid mortgage. You don't have to pay that. He was shocked, absolutely shocked that that would happen. So apparently, in the way I'm interpreting this, see, the Biden regime, Tuesday, 2 days ago, announced a new targeted federal eviction ban to replace the one that expired over the weekend. Well, that's setting up a potential clash with the Supreme Court. Now, the CDC's new ban will apply, like I said, to counties experiencing high levels of community transmissions. So, Jack Alexander, because I know you know already the three branches of government, it would seem to me that now the CDC, in and of itself, good old Walensky, hey, she's the fourth branch of government now, Jack.
There are so many of these departments that are trying to do that. I mean, you got the CDC doing it, you got the ATF doing it. I mean, you got the Bureau of Land Management doing it. They're all taking it upon themselves to engage in lawmaking and policing, and none of these agencies are constitutionally eligible to do any of that.
Biden said on Tuesday, he sought out constitutional scholars. Well, I'm sure there's an assload of them in the White House.
In other words, he just asked Obama.
Yeah.
He'd be the only constitutional scholar that Biden knows.
Right. Or Valerie Jarrett. Or his dog. He asked his dog. To determine the CDC's legal authority and what could they do that is most likely to pass muster constitutionally. And so his advisors, I'm kind of shocked to hear this, said that any additional action by the CDC would probably not pass muster in the courts, but he was going to do it anyway. So I noted, here's a tweet from A6 Intruder Mouth Maxine Waters on Twitter. 3 days ago. She says, I'm going to read it directly from the tweet. I don't buy that the CDC can't extend the eviction moratorium. Something it has already done in the past. Who's going to stop them? Who's going to penalize them? There is no official ruling saying that they cannot extend this moratorium. Come on, CDC, have a heart. Just do it. So as I said, well, fourth branch of government, we didn't elect Walensky. She didn't, to my mind of remembering, she didn't have to campaign. Oh, wait. Maxine Waters, isn't it your job to legislate, not some alleged medical entity? Didn't SCOTUS already say this is illegal? The answer is yes. So what are we seeing here? What did she say? She says, who's going to stop them? Thug's Law. Who's going to penalize them? Thug's Law. It's the Thug's Law. And I've said this before any number of times here on the show. The Thug's Law is this. I saw it when I was a cop, day in and day out. Always true then, always true now. The Thug's Law is what's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine, unless you're strong enough to stop me. What that means is, and I've heard people take great umbrage over all of this. Well, they can't do that. They can't do this, and they can't do that, and they can't do this and that. Yes, they can. They're doing it now. Because Who's stopping them? Not the Republicans. Folks, and Jack, I want to remind you of this. Anybody ever hear of the Fifth Amendment? It was ratified way back in 1791. The very last sentence is what I want to emphasize in bold italics. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia where in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be witness against himself, nor deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Folks, that applies. None of the people in Congress or the Senate seem to be aware of this in the Bill of Rights. Jack, some thoughts?
Yeah, it's amazing how much the politicians really don't want the Constitution. It's when it comes to personal liberties and so on. You know, I had a discussion, and it falls on a similar vein, you know, with this my local congressman, and I said, look, I just want to pack up my family and leave the country, and he says, well, just go. It's a free country. And I went, you're serious, right? You can't walk into a building without scanning a QR code and lodging that trace with the state. You can't move more than 5 kilometers or 3 miles without risking a $5,000 penalty. As a journalist, I have to get police permission to do my job. I can't even leave the country unless I ask federal government permission. What part of this conversation, implies that I am free to do what I like? You know, and the politicians, you know, they love all of these freedoms. The politicians in all of these lockdowns, they're not restricted from traveling. I mean, we had one.
No,
one
of
of
course not.
governors,
Why would they be?
Even though Brisbane City has got the 2032 Olympics, they were the only city on the planet that applied for them. She still felt the need, in spite of lockdowns, to go and, you know, bigwig it in Tokyo with the Olympic officials. Even though, you know, the state had already won the thing. You know, she's free to travel internationally. The athletes are free to travel, not only internationally, but interstate. I mean, every time there's a lockdown in a particular state, they pack up all the pro sporting events before they lock it down and ship them interstate so that they can still run. You know, this is the sort of garbage that, you know, and the politicians just think, oh, this is fine. You know, they don't have a problem with this. And every time I hear a Democrat like Nancy Pelosi or Maxine Waters, and oh, let's face it, Maxine Waters is a disaster area.
Oh, God.
I mean, I don't think that, you know, the only person who, well, actually, I can think of quite a few liberals who've got more incoherent shit coming out of their mouths. And it starts with Joe Biden and it goes through Alexandria, occasionally coherent, Sheila Jackson Lee, Cori Bush. To be a total intellectual disaster, you know, must be a prerequisite in being a Democrat, because, you know, they just don't see their hypocrisy. They don't see the contradictions, and they just do. They know. I honestly think they know. They're fully aware of the damage they are inflicting on the people. But because they are not feeling the pain, and they know that the voting public are too fucking stupid to stop them, they know that they can continue doing this. And that's why this COVID thing has gone on too long. And while we're talking about stuff that probably didn't hit the news, did you see the news that the CDC has delisted the real-time PCR test that for COVID, the test that everyone is using to pick whether you got COVID? Well, apparently it can't differentiate between the alpha strain of COVID, the delta strain of COVID. It can't differentiate the 18 varieties of SARS, swine flu, any of the numerous types of influenza. It just pops positive with all of them. And that has now been delisted by the FDA and the CDC because it can't differentiate them. Yet everyone's using it. The Australian Health Minister was told of that, and he said, well, it doesn't matter because nobody's gotten the flu over the last 2 years anyway. I mean,
really?
That was the response.
Really?
That was the actual response. Very few people have gotten the flu anyway over the last couple of years.
Well, I don't think it's been subsumed.
COVID's come along and the flu just went away. So that those 12,000 people that would have died of the flu, they died of something else. In fact, we had an incident where a guy on a motorcycle, he'd been drinking and wrecked his bike, killed himself. They tested the corpse, and guess what he had? And guess what his death was recorded as?
Well, it had to be Wuhan 19, right?
Yep. Yeah, his death wasn't brought onto the road statistics. No. That was a COVID death.
Well, of course, why shouldn't it be? Hey, folks, I want to remind everybody about this right now.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're continuing to talk to Jack Alexander, and I asked if Jack wanted to do a little overtime tonight, and he said yes, he would. So, again, thank you, Jack Alexander, for that. While you were talking, Jack, I found an article dated July 25th, 2021, posted by John Titor. And the headline is, why is the CDC quietly abandoning the PCR test? It says, we have detailed the controversy surrounding America's case-demic and the misleading results of the PCR test and its amplification procedure in great detail over the past few months. And so what they discovered is numerous epidemiological experts have argued that the cycle thresholds are an important metric by which patients, the public, and policymakers can make more informed decisions, except now health departments across the country are failing to collect that data. So in summary, with regard to the current case-demic, positive tests as they are counted today don't indicate a case of anything. They indicate that viral RNA was found in a nasal swab. It may be enough to make you sick, but according to the New York Times and their experts, probably won't. And certainly not sufficient replication of the virus to make anybody else sick. But you will be sent home for 10 days anyway, even if you never have a sniffle. And this is the number the media breathlessly reports and is used to fearmonger mask mandates and lockdowns nationwide. But notice what's missing here, folks, especially in Florida. I played the thing early in the show, the video, the audio, in my case, of the nurse saying, "Gird thy loins, COVID is about to go up." And the other nurse said to the supervisor, "Really? Why? How would you know that?" And the reply was, "Well, you know. This stinks. It stinks to high heaven. It stunk then, it stinks now. New York, Jack Alexander, just got itself into a very interesting pickle. And I don't think that it took this into consideration. Well, if it was a decision made by a leftist, there was no forethought given, or what I call the logical extension. In other words, I wonder what's going to happen down the line if we make this decision. Well, screw it. Who cares? This is from The Hill. New York City to require vaccination for indoor activities, restaurants, gyms, basically any place indoors in New York City at all. Well, here's something they hadn't thought of, didn't listen to, or they just decided to avoid it at all costs. So according to New York City's own data, the greatest percentile of unvaccinated people in New York City aren't Trump-loving white supremacist terrorist extremists. No. It's blacks and Hispanics. Blacks are 31% vaccinated. Hispanics are 42% vaccinated. So, Biden, got a question for you. Do you really want to be the guy forcing the vax on people of color in New York City or anywhere else? Because what isn't spoken about, unless you happen to be on various places in social media and looking very carefully, is a lot of black Americans, historically speaking, don't trust vaccines. They don't trust the government. They didn't trust the vaccine under Trump, and apparently they don't trust the vaccine under Biden. Here's another thing that no one has thought of. Thalidomide. Look that bad boy up. But yet Biden is going to force this on black Americans all across the fruited plain. This is very.
You don't even have to go back as far as thalidomide. When go back to 2009 and the first generation of vaccines for N1H1.
Oh, right.
Every single one of them, and I think there was 2 of them that was created, were recalled, and they were recalled after just 25 combined deaths, and only a couple of hundred adverse side effects were detected. They were issued, they were allowed to be used under the same emergency use authorization that, all of these vaccines are being issued with now. Yet here we are, we have over 12,000 deaths in the United States. The CDC published that figure and then tried to cut it in half.
Right, cover it up.
So let's believe that the first figure, because it's probably closer to the truth, even though I think it's still very low from the data I've been following. Yet, and they're not. The OSHA is not taking on reports for vaccine-related adverse effects and fatalities. The VAS system at the FDA is not taking them, and the drug companies themselves have their own self-reporting thing, which is not legally binding and is not transparent to the public anyway. So, they're doing all they can to push this and hide the extreme side effects. Now, a friend of mine here in Australia works in. He's an orderly at a hospital, and they forced him to get the vaccine. Within 2 weeks of the second shot, he had to come from the little country town where he was up into Melbourne to get surgery to remove a blood clot. And the hospital that he was working is denying that the vaccines had anything to do with it. Now, this is a blood clot in a person who is a borderline bleeder. He has low platelet counts, low-level hemophilia. Right now, if it can blood clot requiring surgery on someone who's a borderline hemophiliac, how is that going to affect other people? And given the amount of shit that has been pumped into my body during my 10 years in the military, I don't know what I've been injected with. What has that done to my body that I'm going to have an adverse reaction to? I mean, anyone that's been in the military, you'll know, that first week of boot camp, how many times were you there in front of the medics, lined up in your tighty-whities, getting jabbed for something?
Human pincushions.
Yeah. I mean, it was at the time, it was immensely funny because, the guy in front of me was a big, tough biker, tattoos from, arsehole to breakfast time. You just take the cap off the needle and he's already laid out on the floor. And it's, okay, quick, let's get everything into him before this son of a bitch wakes up and beats the snot out of us. But, who knows? I know I was probably given something for anthrax and a ton of other stuff. How is that going to react with all of this? Because, those military records, I don't have ready access to. And by the time you try and work your way through all of this, here they are seriously considering vaccination passports, in spite of the fact that ethically, morally, and legally, they are wrong. They are still talking, if you want to go out and dine in a restaurant, you're going to need a vaccine passport, or you're going to have, many workplaces are saying, look, get the shot, or every day you are going to have to get tested and show us that you're negative to let it in the door. Oh, and you'll be doing it at your own expense.
That's already mandated for California. Every worker for the state of California already occurred for DOJ and CHP. Every employee has to show proof of vaccination. And you're going to get tested.
When I brought up the idea of vaccination passports to my congressman, he accused me of being a conspiracy theory. Within 24 hours, the federal government announced their plan to bring these things in.
You gave him the damn idea. Darn you.
Well, no, because the guy that brought the passports in is the opposing political side. But somehow I'm still a conspiracy theorist for saying, this is wrong and it shouldn't happen. But no, it's not going to happen. And this, I had a look. This fucking son of a bitch voted in favor of it 3 days before I brought it up to his attention. He voted in support of them. That lying sack of shit.
And you're a nut. Jack, you're the nut. Also, I should like to emphasize what Jack said, folks. Employers, this is a headline from Human Events. Employers are no longer required, and I spoke about this on my show about a month ago. As a matter of fact, this is from June 29th. Employers are no longer required by OSHA, California OSHA, and federal OSHA to record worker side effects from COVID vaccine. In other words, I speak leftist, so I'll translate. They don't want to know about any vaccine side effects from employees. Period. End of statement.
Yeah. Somehow we're the crazies.
Yeah, you're the crazies. Oh, look, it's somebody from the Biden regime. Oh, wait, it would help if I turned on the audio, wouldn't it? Okay, let me go back here a little bit. Yeah, because I got the wrong one in here. Here's someone representing the Biden regime. Oh, wait, it's Biden.
No, I want to be clear about what the CDC is saying and what the CDC is not saying. The CDC is saying they have concluded that fully vaccinated people are at a very, very low risk of getting COVID-19. Therefore, if you've been fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask. Let me repeat. If you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask.
That day. What about the next day? And the day after that? So is it really any amazing wonder why no one believes a thing that you say? Including now leftists. Leftists are calling leftists out. This is so bizarre.
Great to see more people.
It's Bill Maher.
I missed your partial faces. We've been off for a month. Have you been okay? I was hoping that when we came back here, we'd be done talking about the pandemic. But, of course, now the Delta variant has everyone crazy. I am not worried. I live in California. The coronavirus in the air is killed by the smoke from the fires.
There you go.
But the CDC put out new mask guidelines now, which is, it's all just so fucking confusing. Indoors, outdoors, vaccinated, masked, not masked. The Walmart shoppers don't know who to punch anymore. So now we're back to wearing the mask from the front of the restaurant until the waiter brings the breadsticks. It's called science, people.
And now with that, you've lost Bill Maher. Here's something weird in terms of coronavirus. In Washington, D.C., murders now have surpassed coronavirus deaths in July by nearly a 3-to-1 ratio. Jack Alexander, let me ask you this. On Sky News, have you ever heard of this guy called Alan Jones?
I used to make fun of Alan Jones early in my radio career, yes. I've actually met Alan on a few occasions.
Okay. When we get through with this, let me know what you think of this version of Alan Jones.
Many of you wrote to me about Joe Biden. Well, I've got to say, you've got to wonder where this will end. I refer to the leader of the free world, the President of the United States of America. The American comedian Chris Rock once said, when Barack Obama was president, and I quote, "The President and the First Lady are kind of like the mom and dad of the country. And when your dad says something, you listen," unquote. Well, as Kyle Smith has written in the New York Post, Joe Biden is the granddad of the country. And when you listen to granddad, you sometimes wonder whether it's safe for him to be near a pair of scissors. Kyle Smith writes, "This bloke who looks like he'd have trouble using Google Maps happens to be in charge of all the nukes. On the rare occasions when Biden's staff let him out of the day room to be seen on camera, pre-selected members of the press ask him the gentlest conceivable questions and then wind up cringing as Biden gives one unnerving display after the other." Now, remember this, when he said he made it to the Senate 180 years ago and he was vice president for 10 years. Listen to this.
I've made it a priority my entire career to work closely with you from the time I got to the Senate 180 years ago.
God. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin must be watching these press conferences, laughing at their good fortune. Suddenly the world's greatest power is in the hands of a slightly dazed bloke who looks like he's always waking up from heavy anaesthesia. Remember the whispering episode? Like someone, as Kyle Smith writes, auditioning to play a stalker. Listen to this.
We're waiting for relief. I got them $1.9 trillion relief so far. They're going to be getting checks in the mail that are consequential this week for childcare. A lot has been happened already. Don't dismiss it at all. Just remind them, I wrote the bill on the environment. Why would I not be for it?
Mm-hmm.
The disturbing thing here is the free world depends on the United States as the unfree world gains momentum. And the free world is run by a bloke who most probably couldn't find his way home after dark. Well, the Republicans are now about to strike. The Texas Republican Ronnie Jackson, and this is the reason I'm telling you this, the former White House physician for Donald Trump, he's now a Republican senator, has called on the Democrats to follow through with their prior demands regarding a president's cognitive ability and have President Joe Biden assessed. Now, you might recall the anti-Trump brigade, 1 year into Trump's presidency, sought to undermine him by arguing about his mental aptitude. Things are different in America. Both Trump and Obama took what's called the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. It's a sort of a 30-point exam that tests for memory impairment. Both.
Let's talk about that just for a second, Jack Alexander. I got one or two more articles to talk about before we go. I've never come across Alan Jones before, but I have to say I had two cuts for tonight, and I'm not going to get to the second one. But I have to say, I kind of like this guy. Is he actually in Australia?
Yes, he is. Alan Jones is one of the two biggest radio talk show hosts. He has been around a long time. The other one being John Laws, who at one stage was actually earning more per day on radio than Rush Limbaugh prior to his first retirement. But Alan has been a stalwart of talk radio in Australia for a long time, and it's cost him financially with the numbers of fines that have been levied against him for exposing the truth.
See, that's
a few years back.
That's what I wonder. How, if the things that you're telling me are true, and I have no reason to doubt whatsoever that they are not true, meaning I believe completely that they're true, but if they're true, how does that guy in Australia get away with saying the things he does?
Very well high-priced lawyers. I mean, that is the difference in a lot of this. The government is not going after the big network guys because the networks like Sky have very good and very high-priced lawyers strategically placed around the country that they can shut down a lot of the problems. I can't afford that sort of legal help. So they don't come after us, the network guys. They come after the independents like me because they know that we will, because we can't afford to fight, a lot of these cases. A lot of independent journalists will just plead out. And every time that Alan Jones has gotten into trouble, he has fought it tooth and nail, and 9 times out of 10 he'll win. But I know of one case where he was hit with a $3 million fine for breaking the racial vilification in broadcasting laws because he identified a rape gang of young teenage jihadis in Sydney. And because he spoke out and identified them as being Islamic, the whole Islamic community goes to court. They have him tried under that, and he winds up having to pay $3 million in civil penalties. And that is what keeps a lot of people quiet. I'm not making the $6 or $7 million a year that Alan Jones is making, and I don't have a big network behind me to save my ass when my mouth gets me into trouble.
I haven't touched this yet. Oh boy, I shouldn't have said touched with regard to this topic now because we're shifting gears a little bit. Cuomo, the governor of New York, is in a bit of hot water. And I compare Cuomo to Al Capone. Al Capone killed personally or by his direction, people say, a couple of hundred up to 500 people that just no one knew about. He was finally taken down and shoved into a federal prison under tax evasion laws. He died of syphilis in prison. The comparison is, and again, remember the beginning of the show where I said, this is my opinion. Al Capone was no one when it compares to murdering people. Governor Andrew Cuomo murdered killed with malice aforethought, in my opinion, 11 to 15,000 elderly people in the state of New York, and he gets taken down by some chicks for sexual harassment. Not to minimize sexual harassment, but to compare him to Al Capone. Tax evasion, bye, see ya. Sexual harassment killed thousands and thousands of New Yorkers. What's the problem? No problem. Gets taken down for sexual harassment.
Cuomo has made the 9/11 terrorists look like rank amateurs.
Oh, by numerous times over, which is why I wanted to play this. This is 48 seconds of absolutely delicious schadenfreude. This is great. Hey, women for Cuomo, what do you think of him now, huh?
There's a new reality, my friends. And this Trump administration is a new and frightening reality.
But while the federal government is trying to turn back the clock on progress, under Governor Cuomo, New York is going forward. Andrew Cuomo is the leader who gets it done for women.
The governor of the state of New York has invested in women and minority businesses because he recognizes that it's really about building wealth in our communities.
Yeah. And I've been proud to be at his side as we fight sexual assault on college campuses, and we fight the people who denigrate and harass women in the workplace.
We're going to bring a level of change to this state and make it a model against what President Trump is doing.
Yeah, that Cuomo, what a guy. Taken down by sexual harassment. Capone taken down by tax evasion. Amazing. Oh.
But isn't it funny though that all the Me Too advocates are siding with Cuomo? Have you noticed that all of those all of those people are siding with Cuomo and not the women?
Well, you got to remember, it's okay if a leftist does it, right? Isn't that true, Jack? Come on.
That's definitely the example that's being put forward.
Sure it is. I mean, golly. I wanted to touch this, the infrastructure bill that's going through. Because, again, this is not what you've been hearing. This is not what you're going to hear with the infrastructure bill. Folks, did you know that in the infrastructure bill is a drunk driving provision that could monitor you for technology? For, in other words, they're going to put a DUI tester in your automobile. It's in the bill. All new vehicles are going to have a tester before you could start up your car. In other words, we have now potentially transformed over into Napoleonic vehicle law. What I mean by that is you're going to have to prove you're not drunk before you can start your car. A lot of people can't wait for that. Hey, freedom? Fuck freedom. It's overrated. Here's another thing that's in the infrastructure bill that people are yelling to pass. Infrastructure bill includes pilot program to track your vehicle miles. Big Brother wants to know exactly how far Americans are driving. And Big Brother wants you to pay for it, too. So, you see, tucked away on page 508 of the 2,700-page infrastructure bill from the U.S. Senate are the plans for a national per-mile fee program, and it is exactly what it sounds like. The more you drive, the more you pay. Because they don't have you, it's not enough to tax the fuck out of you at the pumps, like California always spell it with a K, and to have your mileage considered for your insurance. Nah, that's not enough. Now the federal government wants its VIG as well. Well, that's in the infrastructure bill. Bet you didn't hear about that part.
Well, did you hear about Connecticut?
Oh, tell me about Connecticut.
Connecticut is wanting to tax America's truckers on any commercial vehicle weighing over 26,000 pounds. They want to, the state of Connecticut wants to charge them 17.5 cents a mile.
Oh, Jesus. I know. Let's just put everybody out of business. Because why not? Government's paying you to stay home anyway, and nobody thought about the extenuating circumstances or the logical extension from that. I'm looking at Twitter, Jack Alexander, and this I find very interesting, and I think I'm going to wrap up the show on this. I'll give you the last word, of course. Trending on Twitter right now with 23.3 thousand tweets is impeach Biden Harris. I'm shocked you let that get through. Jack Alexander, anything you'd like to say in summary tonight before you're arrested in Australia?
Oh, man.
You need a good solicitor, I can tell you that.
Sorry?
You're going to need a good solicitor very shortly, I'm sure.
Yeah, basically, I need help getting out of here. So if somebody knows a good immigration lawyer in the U.S. who is happy to work pro bono, please let them contact me so I can get out of here and get my family out of here before I am arrested, because it's only so long that I can keep this up before the world comes crashing down, and it'll be my family that suffers.
And Jack Alexander, obviously, thank you for being here tonight. Tell folks, because you have a show, tell folks what your show is about and when and where they can see it, hear it, or watch it.
It is called the Jack Alexander Experiment, and I'm live streaming it 3 nights a week at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 Central. Everyone else can figure out their other time zones from there. The best place to catch the live stream, well, you can catch it on on Fascist Book, but they tend to bury it away and don't pass on notifications. But twitch.tv/Jack Alexander Experiment. You can catch the live stream there, or if you do a search for the Jack Alexander Experiment on Spreaker or Rumble, you will find the audio and video archives of the podcast there. You can also find me across a ton of social media, the aforementioned Fascist Book, but I'm also on Pro America Only, Gab, Mega Book, MeWe, Instagram, and Twitter. I've probably forgotten another one. But that's pretty much where you'll find me.
Jack Alexander, it's pushing 4 p.m. where you are, so I'm guessing your wife may have walked in a time or two and pointed at her wristwatch and said, when are you going to make an end? When is this? I got dinner coming in the not too terribly distant future. When are you going to get off the phone with this guy? So, Jack Alexander, thank you very, very much for being here tonight. Late at night. It's 10:38 on the left coast, which means it's 1:38 on the East Coast, and it's tomorrow where Jack Alexander is right now. Thank you ever so kindly, sir, for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, man.
Thank you, sir, and thanks to everybody for listening tonight, because
conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And that also means
Monsieur has unlocked.
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show right here live and direct on the SHR Media Network. Now, if you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. By the way, my original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility. You can find them at ReverbNation.com.
so will.
Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And tiaras are, of course, by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be consorting in, I don't know, 2 minutes after I'm done with this show, because I don't have to drive home from the studio anymore. I can go 15 feet that way to the refrigerator. And thanks to Jack Alexander so kindly for being here tonight. Thanks to you for listening live. Thanks to everybody in chat. Have a great weekend. See you next week. God bless, take care, and be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.